Thank you, Mr. Chester. Any discussion on the motion? If not, we're ready to vote.
Anything coming up for y'all?
I don't have anything.
Nope, we don't.
All right, let's do this verbally.
Okay.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Warren,
Yes.
Mr. Scarce,
Yes.
Mr. Cheshire,
Yes.
Mr. Ingram,
Yes.
Mr. Dudley,
Yes.
Mr. Dalton.
Yes. We good?
We're
All
good.
right. Moving to item 5A, School Division Budget Request Presentation by Dr. Jones. Yes, Ms. Hammond. Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Dalton, members of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Doss, members of the school board, thank you all for having us here today. We greatly appreciate your time as we walk through our budget with you. I'd like to start by saying we hope that you all see a great return on your investment in education in Pennsylvania County. I'd like to share a few slides with you about the results in our school division. And as I begin, I'd like to preface it by saying that, we've just come out of a pandemic where, students were at home some of the time. But I will say that through our board's direction, we as a division, our students were in a majority of the time during that year. And it goes to the work of our staff, the support from our families, but also the direction of our school board, that for the most part, our students were in-person learning during that school year. So let me back up here. This slide here provides you all with our test results. This is the last school year, 21-22 results. Now, this year we don't have our results back in, but if you look at the state scores, and this is pass rates versus our scores, these are the large areas that we test. We test reading, writing, history and social science, math, and science. And you look at the state average in black, and you look in the blue, our average test rates for Pennsylvania County, again above the state average, and that is our goal every year, to be above state with all of our scores. The next slide you'll see, this is a breakdown by individual test. You'll see there that there are 29 tests that we administer, beginning in grades 3 through end of course tests in our high schools. And on 28 of 29, we were at or above the state average. And in one test, we were below. But it just speaks volumes, again, of the hard work of our staffs and the direction of our administration, and the emphasis that we place on hard work and focusing on academics. I'd like to share, these are just some results. When you take our scores and you compare them with all the 132 different school divisions across the state, we are 17th best in math, we're 20th best in science, 17th best in reading, and 25th best in writing. So when you look at percentages, reading and math were in the top 13% of 132 school divisions. In science, we're the top 15%, and in history, we're the top 19%. Again, I go back to it speaks volumes, the hard work of our staff, the direction of our board, the emphasis that we place on academics, and the good support that we have from our families and the communities that you all serve. These next slides, and I believe that Ms. McCluster is going to provide this to you if you'd like to look. This provides information by individual schools, so you can take a look at your schools, the areas that you serve. The first column there with the stars, that's our averages. We just talked about those in the previous slides. The first column without the stars is our state averages. but then each individual school with their scores are there. So I won't go through those scores right now, but if you have an opportunity you'd like to, you can go and look at the scores by school. These are our elementary schools here, our middle schools, and our high schools. I'd like to also talk about some things that we're doing before I talk about some other things relating to funding. But just the past graduation that we had, not this past year, but before the pandemic, we had 21 students in our high schools who graduated with an associate's degree. In our high schools, we provide numerous dual enrollment opportunities for students, and dual enrollment is where they earn a credit, high school credit, as well as a credit from Danville Community College. We have 20 outstanding programs at our Career and Technical Center. We have students in 11th and 12th grade who can attend the Governor's School, can attend the Academy for Engineering and Technology. Our 9th and 10th graders this year, we began a bridge program at our STEM Academy in STEM and CTE. In our middle schools, we have Career Connections labs associated with the GoTech initiative. That's across the different regions in the state. We have computer coding in our elementary schools. And just most recently, our beta students came back from the state beta convention with numerous awards. So again, I go back to the hard work of staff and the extra efforts that they make for our children. I'd like to next talk about, thank you all very much for your efforts in approving the resolution to place the sales tax referendum on the ballot in November. Thank you for your support. We have met with our school board. We're meeting with our school board building committee and seeking direction from them. We provided some preliminary numbers. Mr. Hudson has worked with a local engineering firm to revise numbers based on inflation. So we have current numbers provided, and so we're in the point right now where we're beginning a lot of planning over the next couple of months as we look towards this summer when the sales tax revenues begin trickling in July. If you recall, we can start realizing those revenues in July. So we'll track those with assistance from your finance department to see how they track in over the first 2 or 3 months. And then at that point, we'll have an idea of what that may look like over the 19 years of the referendum. But on the slide here, we have the priorities. If you recall, safety was number one as we went out and spoke in our communities, safety in our schools. So the first priority are security vestibules. That's going to cost about $2.5 million there to put a safety vestibule as a double entry into our schools. Second priority, we have outdated HVAC units and windows that we need to replace. We have used a lot of end-of-year funds to try to do that over the years, but those things are very expensive. And so right now, priority 2, as we present to the building committee may look at this and change this, but this is kind of what we're providing right now. It's $35 million there. Then to eliminate mobile units at 3 of our most overcrowded schools, $12 million. And then the second set of priorities are additions to Mount Airy, Hurt, and Union Hall. It's $6.1 million. Chatham Elementary School, we have a STAR program and some other programs there. 6 additional classrooms there is $2.5 million. We have some plumbing issues at Chatham L that we need to take care of, about $300,000. And then to attach our gyms, we have some schools with detached gyms. It's about $712,000 for a total. The first 2 priorities total of $59.8 million. The remaining renovations listed as we went out and talked about the sales tax referendum, renovations to PCTC, and then other items like sewer systems, restroom renovations, drain fields, paving, roof replacements. And those roof replacements there are our newer roofs that will not need to be replaced until 5 to 10 years out, but that's another $25.9 million there. Total renovations of $85.7 million. Also, we received some money this year in this year's budget from the state, about $3.2 million for capital projects. And so provide that information to you. We have $3.2 million available. We have earmarked 4 projects, roofs at 3 elementary schools, entire roofs, and then a partial roof at Hurt Elementary School to cover the cafeteria. And that's $5 million right there to replace those roofs. So the difference that we need is about $1.8 million. And we're looking at, our ADM is tracking up. The students are returning from being out during the pandemic, and they're returning, so our ADM is up. And then any additional unspent funds, we're looking to fill that gap with those funds at about $1.8 million. Just to review, Pittsylvania County, we receive 62.4% of our education funding from the state, 26.2% from the locality, and about 11.4% from the federal government. The state receives about 43% from this, as an average, the state as an average, school divisions receive about 43.5% from the state, about 46.9% from the locality, and about 9.5% from the federal government. And then to provide per pupil comparison, just compared to Danville, total per pupil for Danville is about $15,000 per pupil. For Pennsylvania County, it's about $11,976 per student, and the state average is $14,206 per student. When you break that down, again, you have federal, state, and local. Our local contribution for Danville is $4,664. For Pennsylvania County is $3,144, and for the state, it looks like it's $6,669 per student for the state average. And that'll kind of give you some ballpark numbers to look at when you compare across the state. And I think that's all the slides that I have. Again, we thank you all for your support of education. It makes a difference for our children. And we feel very good about the work that our staff does in preparing children based upon the results that we see. Any questions for me? Okay. At this time, Mrs. Worley.
Dr. Jones, I have one.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us any idea what the trend looks like for the increase in the ADM?
It seems to be going up. In past years, ADM usually trends downward during the year. Our ADM this year has trended upwards. So what that means is that usually we start out, let's give a ballpark. Let's say we had 8,200 kids, September 30th. Well, it usually tracks down, so by the end of the year, you're probably at 88,000. Well, this year, it's tracked upwards. So instead of starting out at 82, let's say we started at 82, it's now probably 8,300 kids.
In relationship to last year's ADM, do you have a ballpark?
She has numbers.
Okay. You're going to do the numbers?
She'll do that.
You're coming to do the numbers, okay. And you mentioned Danville. Doesn't Danville get more per student from the state than Pennsylvania County because of their status?
They do. They get $8,684 per student, and we get, $7,468. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I knew it was a difference because of the poverty rate. Yeah.
Yes, sir, it is. Okay. Any questions for me?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Worley. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Nice to be here today. So Dr. Jones talked about the fun stuff, letting me come in and talk about the numbers. So just want to mention, you did ask about Danville City receiving more money state, and they do, but they also received quite a bit more from their locality too. So I just wanted to point that out before I got started. Okay. So before we jump into current budget year, looking at the House and the Governor and the Senate versions, just wanted to update you a little bit on where we are with our CARES Act money. We started our CARES program with about almost $27 million in revenues that we received from the state, and that does not count the about $2 million that we received from the Board of Supervisors as well. So we are spending that. We are down to about $15 million left to be spent, and that's just the different categories. Of course, CARES 1 we finished about a year and a half ago. We're still working on 2 and 3, and then some of the set-aside monies from the state. All of this money is obligated already. We have to spend 20% of that CARES Act 3 money on learning loss. We have a good plan going for us there. We have been and will continue to provide intensive summer learning for our students. And when I say intensive, I mean we have meals, we have our cafeterias working, we have our nurse staff there, and we're providing transportation. And they are things that normally in the past we do not do for our summer school programs. And we have funding to continue providing that type of program for 23 and 24. The next bullet just shows you what we're doing to address some of the learning loss, some of the positions that we're hiring. We're doing some technology purchases with that. Lots and lots of tutoring. We're offering a lot of support to our students, and we're also implementing some programs to assist with social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students that have been created during the pandemic. We are using this fund to pay our virtual Virginia fees for our virtual students. And 2 big projects that we're doing, we are replacing 2 HVAC systems, the Career Technical Center and Kentuck Elementary School, and we're using some of the CARES money to provide that. And then, of course, we committed $5.5 million to work with the Board of Supervisors on the broadband project. And all of this funding, some of this has to be spent by September of 23, round 2, and round 3 has to be spent by September of 24. So we are tracking that information. So a little bit of ADM information for you, Mr. Warren. I wanted to show you what the ADM has been looking like since the pandemic. And please know this is our average daily membership, not enrollment. You can see that we started out, and I'm using the March 31 because that's our final ADM, and that is how our final entitlements are funded to us through the state. So you can see, obviously, we have been tracking downward since 2020. And when you get down to September 30 of 22, let's start talking about that a little bit. You can see that we've been going down. For the 22-23 school year, our budget was based on 7,430 average daily membership. At September 30 of 2022, we were at 7,533. So that's about 103 students more than what we budgeted. So that's what we're talking about, that additional state money that we will be receiving based on those students. And I just wanted to show you, we do an ADM in-house every month so that we can track this information. And at January 31, we're at 7,574. And I'm going to tell you, I've been here a long time. I have never seen this. I mean, generally, once we get that September 30th number in, we start going down. In December, we normally have early graduates. This year, we had 18 December graduations. So I was expecting that number from December to January to go down. When I got that little paper and I'm looking at it, I'm calling everybody. I'm like, did you not take the graduates out? What's going on? But obviously, we are bringing in more students. We had a region meeting last week, and Danville City is on there, and we were all kind of talking about our ADM, and she said, well, I know where you're getting them from because ours are leaving and coming to you. So we are definitely picking up more students. Right now, the 23-24 budget that we're going to be talking about, the state is estimating $74.50 for our ADM, and I'll just tell you, I think that that's too low. Right now, that's what we're going with because I really can't determine what things are going to look like because I do feel like from this point for the next couple of months, it should go down a little bit. But, so far this year, we've not seen that. So any more questions on that, Mr. Warren, or are we right now? I know you're thinking, and I'm glad. So let's start looking at next year's budget. When Governor Youngkin's budget came out in December, and we went through that information, we're looking at about $3.2 million in state money, new money for us to work with next month. And I did want to share, it's a lot of information in that first paragraph, and I apologize for that, but I kind of wanted to, number one, thank you because you know that the board, and we know the board has been working very hard over the last few years to help get our funding up, get us above the minimum because we were just sitting at that number for so long. And I wanted you to see that for 21, and I might have to pull the glasses out here, the local funding was 24.1% above the minimum. And when I talk about minimum funding, we get an entitlement sheet from the state. And it has all of our state money broken down, and it has all of the local matching money. So there is standards of quality money. We call that the SOQ funds. You have to fund that for us because they are the things that have to happen for us to operate a school division. Then we have incentive programs and we have lottery programs. Incentive programs would be if the state gives money for compensation for a salary increase, then you would have a local match on that as well. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. It just depends on what they're doing in Richmond. Our Virginia preschool program, that's an incentive program. A lottery program is our early reading, it's our alternative school, it's our algebra readiness money. All of those monies have a local match as well, and in order for us to receive the state money, then you would need to provide that match, and you do. You always have, and we do appreciate that. So in fiscal year 21, as I said, you were about 24% above that minimum amount that is required. We get into fiscal year 2022, and you're at about 18.5%. Well, what happened in 23-24? Local composite index changed. Apparently, Pennsylvania County, according to the state's formula, has the ability to pay more. So that number changed to 25.11%. And when that happened, and you're looking at this year, you are now, even though you gave us more money for this year, $1.2 million, you're now only 6% above that minimum number. So I just wanted you to kind of see what these numbers look like and what all of this means. And for new members, that local composite index, it's a very complicated formula. It looks at the property value, the adjusted gross income, the taxable retail sales, and it looks at the student population as well as the total population to determine what they think, based on all of this information, the locality is able to pay. So that is where that number comes from. So back to 24 budget now. With this $3.2 million, all of that is really designated. There were some changes in specific programs where some of the state money went up. That money has to go to those programs. We're talking VPI preschool, we're talking textbooks, we're talking school breakfast. And then the rest of the money, there is a 5% compensation increase in the governor's budget, and there's also a 1% retention bonus. So we need more money than that state money just to make these things happen. And I think I've put in there for you that we would need an additional $892,000 from you, based on governor's budget, to keep all the programs we have at the level that budget is designating, to give a 5% increase to our staff, and to do this 1% retention bonus. So these state monies, we do not receive those if we don't provide the local match and implement those initiatives. And I think we've talked about how our, ADM, obviously since the pandemic, has certainly been going down, but the state has held us harmless, during that time period, and that is state money that we're getting. We actually have a line item for that, and that does have a local match to it as well. So that's where we're coming in with the funding, even though, our numbers have gone down, we've not lost funding from the state or from our local governing body. And I think you all know that the pandemic has been, it's been hard on, our personal lives, on our business lives outside of county government and outside of our schools, but it has definitely been a challenge for our schools. It's been a challenge for us as far as funding. I tell Dr. Jones that, I'm getting near retirement, and if we have another pandemic soon, I'm gone. I'm just telling you, because it is just the money that they have poured into us, and the rules and the regulations and how we have to spend it. And it's federal money, so you have to follow Davis-Bacon. Everything costs so much more when you're working in that federal realm. But, we have, needed more funding for our schools. We've needed more staffing, the support that we need to provide to our students. It's just been overwhelming, and I think we're doing a very good job. I think our staff is working very hard, and I think you've been very supportive of us as well, and we want to thank you for that. So next, we have our priorities. So we started out with this $11 million list. I think y'all probably do about the same thing. At your level, everybody tells you what they want and what they need and what they like. And we've narrowed it down to these top priorities here, and I'll tell you, it's about $5 million. And the number one is that cost of living increase. The governor's budget, like I said, is 5%. The House and Senate have 7% in there. So that $3.5 million, that's what it would cost for us to give out all of our contracted staff a 5%. And if we start looking at the 7%, that's going to be $4.9 million. You can kind of go through that list. It's a couple of positions in there. We've had a lot of talk about we are trying to start some middle school sports programs. You'll see some things like the fire alarms at the bottom, the Chatham Elementary School sewage, band towers. There are some things in there that are one-time expenditures. We will certainly look at end-of-year money to try to make some of those happen, but I think you just saw on our roof projects, that is our end-of-year money right there, is to make those projects happen. And that's a great return because we got $3.2 million in state money. So whatever we can add to that would be a great return on those dollars. The last one that I want to mention is that Chromebook one-to-one replacement devices. As you know, we received a couple of $1 million from the county, and we used that to buy Chromebooks. And then we've used about another $1.5 million from some of our CARES money and ECF funding. Dr. Jones, I forget what that stands for. I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Scott. Emergency connectivity funding. So we have spent about $3.5 million in Chromebooks. Chromebooks are less expensive than laptops, which means that their lifespan is less as well. So they have about a 5-year lifespan. So in fiscal year 26, we're looking at having to replace $3.5 million of Chromebooks. Now, do those Chromebooks still work when they're 5 years old? Absolutely. Will we still use them as long as possible? Absolutely. Because we will be using those definitely to send home with our students. However, once they reach that 5-year lifespan and that license is run out, we cannot use them for testing. And so that's what our kids take SOL tests in every school. Okay, so we're going to have to start replacing those devices because we have to have current devices within our schools for our testing. So we are trying to plan ahead, and this is about 25% of that. And we'll start rotating devices. So we'll have the new ones in the school, and then we'll start sending other ones home with our students. So just kind of wanted you to know where that came from because that is definitely a project that we have worked on together. So any questions on priorities from the school board. So the $1 million slide coming up. So the governor's budget and the House budget, they are very similar. The governor has the 5% compensation increase, but he also has some money in there for some bonuses. There's a retention bonus. There's a teacher pay for performance bonus. Those things are not in the House budget. The House budget kind of pulled away from that, and they have bumped up for a 7% increase. If the governor's budget is passed, for us to be able to do all of our initiatives, and we know, this is our big wish list. If we were to be able to do everything, we would need about $2.1 million from you. The House budget, to do what's in the House budget and to do our priorities, we would need about $2.2 million. The budget that we're pulling for is the Senate budget, and we would not need any additional funding, and we could do everything on our list, and life would be good. We know that is probably not going to happen. The difference in the budgets, as I said, the governor has the 5% compensation. All of them are addressing reading specialists this year, adding more grades to that. The House and Senate are, they both have a 7% compensation increase. And the Senate budget, the reason that there is a lot more money in that budget, the Senate is proposing increasing our at-risk funding, which would be for all of our students really now and what they're going through, to fully remove the support cap. And I don't know if you remember, but back in the recession, a lot of money was taken from school budgets, and it was for that support staff. And a couple of years ago, they did put a chunk of that money back in, but we are still several $1 million short. And the Senate is proposing, because they have revenue at the state level, to put that money back in. And they have a bonus in there as well. That seems to be the new thing right now with governments and schools, and I think because they've been using CARES money to provide some of that. So that's some of the differences. Honestly, we're not here today to say what we're going to be exactly asking for. This is what things look like, so it gives you some numbers to know that we're going to be somewhere in this area when we present our budget to you. General Assembly ends on Saturday. We're hopeful that we're going to have a budget, but everything I've been hearing, I don't know that that's going to happen. So if not, we're going to have to decide which version that we're going to go with, and then you will have a better dollar amount. And I'll be working with Ms. Vanderhyde on that. I did want to mention, as I was kind of going through the audit, that there is some school debt retiring. One's retiring this year, March of 23. You're going to be paying off one of the middle school debts, and in fiscal year 25, in July of 24, you will be paying off the rest of the middle school debt. So and I know that you are aware of that, but I just kind of wanted to mention that, so maybe that would be somewhere maybe you could find some additional funding for school system. So any questions from me? We certainly thank you for your time today.
Any questions?
We appreciate you very much, and we thank you for your support as well.
I don't have a question necessarily, but I do have a statement. This is my 8th and final budget of being on the Board of Supervisors. I am thankful for that. But I think I would, at this point, would be remiss that if I didn't say a few things. One is, I am very happy with what the board has done, in particular since 2018, in working with our school division and in trying to improve that and trying to be respectful at all times of your board and their desires and needs for school system. But in particular, I want to recognize Dr. Jones and the great work he's done, and he has a great staff. The results speak for themselves. I want to mention to the public that there's never been a time in that period of time that an economic development announcement or anything that was done that either myself, Mr. Davis, who is no longer with us on the board, or Mr. Ingram did not praise and promote the school division of Pittsylvania County for the quality of education that it's providing. We know you're a big part of that, and we appreciate that. And we always want to send that praise out because, Dr. Jones, you're doing a great job, and so is your staff, and we appreciate that. To the extent that we extended the opportunity to you to have the platform in your group to promote the 1% sales tax at every meeting we had, and that we collectively as a board unanimously supported that, and it didn't matter to us if it was election time or not. We stepped up and said we supported the school system, and I'm happy about that. And I listened to you tonight, Ms. Worley, who does an outstanding job. We're so lucky to have her in our finance department with the school division. But I think it is important for folks that are out there in the public, and even some of your new members of your board that may not realize this. But in 2018, the standards of quality that was required for Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors to allocate to the school system was $15,086,915. Last year in 2023, it was $19,825,345. That's an increase over that period of time of $4,738,430 that Pennsylvania County local government has been responsible for. And we've been fortunate enough through some very strategical moves that the board made in order to have the opportunity to meet those funding needs. During that same period of time, 2018 to 2023, for the last 7 years, primarily the gentleman sitting here and the ones just before them, didn't rest on only providing the minimum to the school division. We provided an additional $17,139,082 to our school system. You know why we did that? Because we believe in what you're doing. And we do really, truly, Dr. Jones, believe in what you're doing and what your staff is doing. And have great respect for that. So I hope, as I will be departing this year, that everyone will continue to remember that this board, and I think they will continue in the future, will be pro-education and supportive of education. I may show up at budget time to try to promote you, Dr. Jones, in the needs of the school division, but also want to challenge your board to communicate. Communication is important, and showing the same respect that we've shown your school division should be shown to this board, and I hope it will be going forward. I think it's done a great job the last 6 or 7 years, and I don't want to see that change. I really don't want to see that change, because together and working together, we can do a lot more. And we don't want to get back to those days when we didn't really work together and we didn't show each other the respect that both parties deserve. Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, Thank you, Ms. Worley.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. All right. No more questions. The meeting is adjourned. Thank y'all.